everybody. Welcome to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from the Lord of the Rings living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. And my name is Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride. And today we are looking at Thalin from the core set, a tactics hero with 9 cost, 1 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, and 4 hit points. Probably the better version of Gloin. But while Thalin's committed to the quest, deal 1 damage to each enemy as it is revealed by the encounter deck. Is probably a dwarf out of the 2 of the 3 dwarves we've seen core set. I think Thalin and Gimli definitely put the dwarves high on the menu, even in the core set, because obviously Thalin's ability is amazing. His artwork, holding that Dwarf axe, mate, like it's something to live for, I've got to say. And that beard, mate. What's up with that beard?
It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and even his flavor text, the hammer on the anvil smote, their chiseled cloves and graver wrote, their forged and bound was hilt, mind the masons built. That says to me that he's either just finished with that big axe that he's holding,
or maybe the helm that he has.
Yeah, and it's like his stats are better than Gloin's, even though he's 1 willpower. The quest is not really that great. His ability makes up for that, but you still can take, if you needed, if you played with Ever My Heart Rises to ready a dwarf character that's committed to the quest, and then you've still got that 2 attack and 2 defense that could be worth something. So the question is not how you use them, but what do you pair them with?
Well, I like the idea of direct damage. When it comes out, you can do this, and that way you can, you could pair them with Haldir. If you don't engage an enemy, you can use Haldir to engage the enemy in the staging area. You can pair them with Dunhere, who can attack enemies in the staging area. Or even as an ally, if you use the Gondorian Spearman, that deals 1 damage when you declare him as a defender. It's possible that with Thalin's 1 damage and the Gondorian Spearman's 1 damage, that attack doesn't even resolve because he's already dealt 2 direct damage. So there's a lot of things that you can pair him with that get rid of nuisance enemies. You're not gonna do the same, right? And so there's things that you're not gonna do that to a hill troll. I mean, you do it to the hill troll because he gets engaged. Or he gets revealed from the encounter deck, but that doesn't necessarily help you too much with the hill troll. But it could help you with the hill troll because, if you have sneak attack Gandalf, and then you bring Gandalf again against the hill troll, then you've done your 9 damage against the hill troll. Now, the problem with that is that hill troll is just put into play. It's not revealed from the encounter deck. It's set aside, and then you put it into play. But if you draw the second hill troll in that encounter deck, then you can do that sort of stuff. Or you can do the 1 damage to him.
Well, technically, the hill troll isn't set aside. It's just if once you've revealed the first card or however many cards you need to reveal, if the hill troll hasn't been revealed in those first few cards, you've then got to look through your deck and add it to the staging area.
Right. You're not revealing
That's
it.
the way it's worded.
Right. The errata says that if it's revealed, any combination or any form of the word reveal is used. So when it's put into play, that's not being revealed. Therefore, Thalin's effect doesn't go off.
Or added to the staging area,
right.
Added to the play area, it doesn't trigger.
But I still think you can pair him with other things that do direct damage to help mitigate some of these really annoying enemies that, obviously Eastern Crows and Goblin Sniper, all those things. But even some of the stronger enemies, Thalin can help kill Nazgul and the Black Riders. Once you reveal those guys are coming out all the time in that scenario. in those scenarios, and to do that 1 damage, it
Did
really
you run Thalin in the Black Riders,
my
David?
my friend did, so I
Ah,
couldn't. He was running Legolas, Eowyn, Tactics Eowyn, and Thalin, and so I was doing my Hobbit deck. But so in terms of stats, I don't know. I mean, I think he's a normal hero. He's got
dwarf.
1, 2, 2. He's got the 4 hit points that make him really, really beefy. He's a stout dwarf. What I like about dwarves like Thalin and Gloin, I'm going to reiterate this, is that it's a dwarf with an effect that's not contingent on other dwarves. That's what I like about Gloin, and that's what I like about Thalin, is that you don't have to have 5 dwarves to come into play, or Dane that you need that gives bonuses to all the dwarves. I love that mechanic, don't get me wrong, but when you're looking for a card, for the 1 card to rule them all, you need a non-specific card text that doesn't impact just 1 trait of a character.
Well, I think they learned the lesson with Dane when they give him such a powerful ability, even though he hasn't been wrought at. I think they learned the lesson that global effects like that are just too powerful. You build any sort of dwarf deck, you look at Dane Ironfoot, and 9 times out of 10, he's an auto-include for any dwarf deck, especially if you're running multiplayer dwarfs. Getting back to Thalin, cards that you can pair with Thalin for him questing, either a boost his quest power or a boost some of his other attributes like his attack, defense, or hit points. You've got Ringmail, that's specific to tactics.
I really like
and,
Ringmail. Yeah, I really like
Well, specific to dwarfs and hobbits, where you gain one defense and 1 hit point. We've talked about the Citadel plate. Well, I think Ringmail's just a better all-rounder than what Citadel plate is for the price. We've got stuff like the Dwarf Axe, Ever My Heart Rises. If you're going to be questing in dungeons and mountain areas, get Ever My Heart Rises in there. I mean, it's a the spirit sphere. So you put that on Thalin, you get an extra action out of them, so you don't have to use an unexpected courage to ready them. So that saves you 2 resources, because Ever My Heart Rises is free. So you might not have to take on a mountain warg. And then you get the added effect of his direct damage, plus then you couple that with, say, the Dwarf Axe. He's then attacking he gets +1 attack with the Dwarf Axe, and then after he attacks, he deals another direct damage to the defending character. So there's 2 direct damage you're getting off Thalin with that, plus his 3 attack.
Right.
It's enough to kill most enemies, especially up to the Khazad-dûm cycle, bar a couple of the bigger trolls and what have you. That's just to name a few card combinations. You've got Boots from Erebor, if you want him to have a few more hit points.
See, Boots. Well, if you're running, if you need him to, because I think it's almost silly in early game not to quest with Thalin because of what can happen early game. So it's almost like you need that extra questing. So if you couple him with, Tactics Theoden that gives all the Tactics heroes +1 willpower, like I think that's a legitimate boost to him. And Tactics Theoden, is a pretty hefty hero to begin with. So I think that's not a horrible combo between the 2 of them, because now Thalin is questing for 2 and doing 1 direct damage to whatever comes out.
Yeah, and then you've also got cards that are not specific to dwarves, but gain extra abilities from dwarves, like the Dwarven Axe and the Corset.
Right.
You hide that onto Thalin, and you've got a 4 attack dwarf there. And for when he was released, Thalin was probably one of the cards to use, because he was doing that inaugural chip damage to every enemy coming off the encounter deck. Chieftain Utak, instead of having 5 hit points, had 4 because of Thalin's damage.
Right. and then
Stuff like
that
that.
makes him Gandalf bait.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Thalin, is that you do that one point, and it doesn't seem like a lot until you go from a 5 damage enemy to a 4 damage enemy, and then all of a sudden, oh, Gandalf can pick him off before you even engage him. Or if you have a 2 hit point enemy and you have the Gondorian Spearman, like I mentioned before, like that direct damage is, I think, underrated, because there's just not a lot of cards in the game right now that do direct damage. You can't build a direct damage deck. It has to be a subtle, like it has to be a subcategory of deck that you build. Thalin is great because I think that one damage helps out. Whether he is a hero that you can build around, yeah, you can build around him. But I don't think he's significantly greater in terms of usage than Gloin.
I'd agree with most of what you're saying. He's definitely not a hero I'd build around. I'd possibly value him a little bit more than Gloin for the fact of it is chip damage and he can kill off surging crows before they surge.
Right. Totally agree.
And all in all, I think Thalin is not quite up to today's standards of, oh my god, I want to use this hero. But from core set to now, the better heroes that I constantly look at and say, well, you know what, I fancy having them in a deck. What could I use them in a deck for? So, how about you, David?
Are we ringing him?
Well, that's entirely up to you if you want to ring his neck or not.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to ring Thalin, I think Thalin deserves the same rating as Gloin. He has similar stats, similar hit points. His ability is unique to him, and I like that he is a versatile hero that doesn't have to go into a dwarf deck. He's not triggered by having other dwarves around him. While that helps, and he can be used to trigger other dwarf effects, he doesn't have to go into a dwarf deck, and I think that is where I find value in heroes. I think that the tactic sphere matches really well with who he is as a character. I think that direct damage is valuable. So I give him the same rating as Gloin, which was a 5. How about you?
I'd give him a flat 5, which is a flat better rating than I give Gloin when we did Gloin. I give Gloin a 7. I'm giving Thalin a 5. I think because he is the only hero that I can think of with that 1 damage to enemies coming off the encounter deck. And yeah, 1 damage may not be all that great, but I've seen it come in handy too many times to count. I've seen his uses, I've used them, I've got some great uses out of them. I'm happy with them. He's not me go-to dwarf if I'm going to build a deck, but if I'm needing some tactics splashed into a deck that doesn't need to worry too much about threat, I'll hoy him in. And if it works, then great. If it doesn't, then I'll go back to the drawing board.
Join us next time when we tackle our very first Ent of the series, and we talk about the tactics Ent, the Durndingle Warrior. So join us next time. Have a great time.